Okay, there it goes. Okay, let's go ahead and get started, and we'll see if anybody else comes in. I realized that for the higher ed and pre-college one we did before, we didn't do introductions, but now there's a few more folks on here, including some folks that are new to our program. So we may as well go ahead and do some introductions. So I'm Eric Wilcox. I am I'm a research professor at DRI, and I am the statewide director for the Nevada NASA programs. Darlene, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, I am Darlene Aranda. I help Eric administer the programs for both EPSCoR and Space Grant.
And Marcy?
Hello, I'm Marcy Jackson. I'm the director of the System Sponsor Programs and EPSCoR office. I'm filling in as the research administrator position for the next little while until we get someone hired, as Carol Luda recently left.
Great. Thank you so much, and welcome to those of you on the faculty members who have joined us today. This is a webinar for the faculty research infrastructure solicitations for Space Grant and EPSCoR. These are two separate programs, but similar in scope, but with some significant differences, which we'll try to highlight. But in both cases, the goal is to provide seed grant funding to faculty for projects that improve the infrastructure for conducting research of interest to NASA's strategic goals in the state of Nevada. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to speak for hopefully not more than 30 minutes. Just I'm going to go through one of the solicitations in a bit of detail, and then I'll bring up the second solicitation, and we'll take a brief look at it, highlight the differences, and then hopefully there'll be plenty of time at the end to take some questions. And this meeting is being recorded, just so you know, and we will be posting the recording for the benefit of faculty who are interested in these programs but weren't able to attend. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And so I always like to start here with our website and show you how to find the solicitations that we're going to talk about, and then walk through the solicitations from there. So this is the website for the Nevada NASA programs. You can always just type Nevada NASA programs into Google, and this website should be the top hit. All of our funding programs are listed here. If you just click this tab at the top where it says funding opportunities, click there. On the top are the currently open opportunities for students. So for those of you who may have students, note that our undergraduate scholarship program and our graduate research fellowship programs are also open. Those details are there. We'll have a webinar coming up in about 2 weeks' time, or a week and a half, for students to talk about those programs. Today we're down here where the faculty calls are listed, and we're going to talk about this one at the top here, the Research Infrastructure Development Seed Grant. This is the Nevada NASA EPSCoR RID Seed Program. We're going to talk about that one. And then we're also going to talk about this program down here near the bottom, the Nevada NASA Space Grant Research Infrastructure Program. So let me just take the EPSCoR one to start with. To get to the specific page on the program, you just click where it says learn more about this opportunity. That will take you to this page, which has some background information on the program, some notes on the eligibility and the funding. And then down here is a link to the full solicitation. So you'll want to, if you're interested in this program, you'll want to click this solicitation link, and that will take you to a PDF file, which I'll go through in just a minute. This is announcing this meeting right now, which we're all attending at this moment. There's the deadline for the proposals. We'll talk about that in a minute. And then the actual submission, this is a link that you would click. All of our proposals are submitted through our website, so you'll want to click the link here to submit your proposal, and we'll return to that. So let me bring up, so let's see, this is the EPSCoR RID seed. So let me bring up the solicitation for that one, which is not this one, but that one. So here's the solicitation itself. I can zoom in a bit more on this. Here on the front matter, right up front is the deadline. Deadlines for this program, Friday, February 21 at 5 p.m. The submission program, or the submission site where you'll submit the proposals does attach a timestamp to it. And as a matter of fairness, we do not review proposals if they don't arrive by the deadline. So be sure to have your proposal done well in advance of 5 p.m. on February 21 and allow yourself some time to find the website, click the link. The link may ask you to fill out some form material, and then you'll have to upload a PDF file with your proposal, which we'll talk about in some more detail as we go along, and upload that. And I can't guarantee you that there won't be a technical glitch. That has happened from time to time. So don't wait until 4:59 to try to go through this process. Allow some time in case there's some technical issue, and then contact us immediately if you run into any difficulty submitting your proposal, and we can remedy that as long as it's before the 5 p.m. Deadline. Period of performance for this program, these projects will run August 1 to May 31. Let's go down here. So important thing to know about all of our solicitations is we do use this attachment feature in the PDF file. So this is why you'll want to download this PDF file, and you'll want to open it in the Adobe Acrobat Reader to make sure that you're able to access the attachments. I have them open here, but I'll close it. The way you find these, there's a little paperclip icon in Acrobat Reader. You click that. And so these are additional documents that are attached with the solicitation that are important. So these include a cover page file. This is a cover, it's a fillable PDF file that you'll want to pull out of this file and fill it out with all the information, the title of your proposal, your name, the name of your sponsored project office or contact person is usually on there, some other things that the cover page might ask you, and then include that cover page on the front of your proposal document. There's also a template, an Excel template here for the budget. You'll want to use this budget template to prepare your budget. There's an example also here of a budget justification in a Word document. One of the elements of your proposal will be a budget narrative justifying your expenditures. And then there's some supporting documents here. So one of the things that we will ask you to do, and I'll probably say this 2 or 3 times as we go through this, is we ask that you explain how your proposal is relevant to NASA's mission directorates or a NASA mission or some specific priority area for NASA. And so some of the documents here are here as references to help you make that argument in your proposal. So included here is a copy of a recent NASA strategic plan document. There's also a document of NASA priority research areas. I think this is a guidance document that we get from the EPSCoR, the NASA EPSCoR office, which includes information about the NASA mission directorates, the NASA centers, what their focus areas are, what their priority areas, research priority areas are. So you want to look in there and find really specific language that you can use in your proposal to draw a concrete connection between your proposed project and a strategic area of interest for NASA. We also asked that, and this is an obligation that NASA puts on our programs, they want our programs to fund activities that are of relevance to Nevada's strategic interests as well. So we include in here a recent statewide plan from the Governor's Office of Economic Development, as well as the NSHE Science and Technology Plan. So you'll want to look through those documents and do your best to find connections between your proposed project and some of the priority areas that are articulated in these documents. So that's the attachments. The introduction here talks about the EPSCoR program and the Research Infrastructure Seed Grant Program. So the goal of NASA EPSCoR is to develop academic research enterprises that are long-term self-sustaining and nationally competitive for non-EPSCoR dollars. So the goal here is to fund projects that help you be more competitive and more successful in open competitions for NASA funds or other federal research dollars. So that's elaborated here in these bullet points. Improve capabilities of Nevada faculty to gain support from sources outside of the NASA EPSCoR program, contribute to development of overall research infrastructure in the state, develop partnerships between Nevada researchers and NASA centers or industry partners that are engaged in NASA-related activities. And to the extent possible, connect with NASA Space Grant Program and the STEM education workforce goals of NASA Space Grant. And I'll talk about Space Grant when we look at the other solicitation later. There's some more details here, which I won't read for you. But again, the goal here is to improve your capability to be more competitive on the open market for research dollars. So one of the obligations that we mention here is that we expect that your project will result in a new proposal to a NASA program or another relevant funding program, be it from another federal agency or an industry partnership or an SBIR grant, or whatever it is. It can be fairly broadly defined, but the purpose of these EPSCoR dollars is to improve your competitiveness on the open competition. So we do want to see that this work leads to a follow-on proposal for more funding from a non-EPSCoR source. We want to help you initiate inter or multidisciplinary activities, create critical mass or expertise in topics of strategic interest to NASA and Nevada, and engage NASA scientists from one or more NASA centers. So ideally, your project will touch on these goals, and if they do, you'll want to articulate that clearly in your proposal. There's no obligation to collaborate with another institution, NSHE institution. And there's also no obligation in this program that the funds be used to support students. However, those two things are allowed. So you can collaborate with another researcher, another NSHE institution. You can engage students in your project if you wish, but they're not requirements of this program. There's another announcement here for this meeting. Eligibility. Faculty within any NSHE institution are eligible to apply. We encourage early career faculty, female faculty, and members of underrepresented populations are particularly encouraged to apply. Faculty receiving direct funding do not need to be U.S. citizens. Faculty who currently have a Space Grant Research Infrastructure or NASA EPSCoR Research Award, be it one of our research seed grants or a federal EPSCoR award, are not eligible until the end of your existing project. If you are a currently funded PI, say you have one of our seed grants, and you can assure us that that project will end before your new project will start, we will accept a proposal and get it reviewed. But you can't have two active projects simultaneously, and that just helps us make sure that the project benefits the most number of faculty that we can. And then the other thing is that I'm talking now about the EPSCoR RID Seed program. In a few minutes, we'll talk about the Space Grant Research Infrastructure. We ask that you pick one of these for your project and propose only to one of them. You can't propose to both of these projects in the same year. Funding for this. Depending on available funds, it is anticipated that 2 projects will be awarded. Total funding shall not exceed $31,000. We'll talk about the budget in a minute. Anything else I need to say about the funding, Marcy?
I'm not sure if it's in this part or the other. It's not large on my screen, but there was a little bit of an error on the budget. It's mentioned state program match, but there's no state program match on this. All of the funding should be federal funding, so just one source of funding.
Yeah, I don't see it, so we'll revisit that point when we get to the space grant one. But it's not mentioned here, so it's $31,000 in federal funds for this program. As I mentioned before, the deadline, 5 p.m., February 21. There's some reporting obligations, which are described here. We do expect you to report to us. We may ask you, some of our programs, we ask for, even if your project's not done, we may reach out to you for a preliminary report. That's because we have a reporting schedule to NASA, which may not align necessarily with these programs. So we may ask you for a preliminary report before your project is done and a final report after your project is done. We also have an annual statewide meeting. We ask PIs to attend that meeting if they can, and often ask them to present on their projects at that meeting. Okay, proposal guidelines. This is the key point if you're preparing a proposal. Normal guidelines for the proposal itself, typed single-spaced. Please do not use typeface smaller than 12 point. Use a typical standard font like Times New Roman or similar. Please don't go smaller than 1-inch margins. A key point here, I will convene a panel to review all the proposals. I can't guarantee you that your proposal will be reviewed by an expert in your field. Generally, for these programs, we find faculty from our community, usually NSHE faculty. NSHE faculty who have participated in our programs before are usually the ones who are most open to reviewing for us. And that's who I draw on to form panels to review these proposals. So your proposal will be reviewed by several faculty, 2 or 3 faculty, but not necessarily faculty who are experts in your area. So make sure that your proposal is written in a manner that it can be understood by a faculty member who is broadly from a STEM discipline. So don't use a lot of jargon, don't use acronyms and expect that are specific to your topic area and expect reviewers to know what you're referring to. Okay, actual contents of the proposal, as I mentioned before, in the attachments is a cover page document. Please use that document to fill out that fillable cover page and then attach that to the front of your proposal document. Here is the project description is limited to 5 pages. The elements of that are described here. A title, a summary like an abstract of the project, not more than 300 words. Project goals, objectives, and methods. Please try to, as best you can, articulate specific tasks that you will implement as the project goes along. Makes it easy for reviewers. The anticipated outcomes or products. So do you anticipate publishing a paper of the results? Do you anticipate submitting a follow-on proposal? As I noted, that's actually an obligation of this program. So please, if you can, indicate where you anticipate submitting a follow-on proposal. If you're creating a new piece of hardware, a new piece of software, you're creating a website, those things could be project outcomes and project products as well. List of collaborators, expertise. We do encourage you to include a NASA partner if it's quite valuable. And one of the goals of this program is for us to connect NSHE faculty with NASA subject matter experts. If you have a partner at a NASA center, or even somebody who's a contractor who's working at a NASA center or affiliated with a NASA-sponsored research lab or whatever, all of those are great. Please try to secure a letter of collaboration from them that articulates how they will contribute to your project. F here, just a description of how the effort will contribute to the NSHE Science and Technology Plan or the State of Nevada Economic Development Plan. So those are the two documents that I mentioned are included. Very valuable. How are you contributing to the goals of the state? And then item G here, a description of how the effort will align with either or both of the NASA EPSCoR or NASA Strategic Plan documents. So the two documents, the Research Priorities document or the NASA Strategic Plan document there, please articulate in concrete terms as best you can how your project is aligned with a specific goal or a specific strategic goal or mission objective of one of NASA's missions. We report this information to NASA, and we have an obligation for these projects to align well with NASA's strategic interests. So it's very important for you to articulate that in concrete terms in your proposal. And that is often usually one of the review criteria when we send these proposals out for review. So you'll want to make sure that you articulate that clearly. And if you're not sure about that, feel free to reach out to me. I can help you sort that out and help you think how to figure out how to think about establishing that connection. Budget and budget justification. We ask you to use, again, that budget template that's included in the attachments, as well as include a budget justification. There are more details here and some details on the restrictions on the funding here. Things like we can't fund civil servant time. So if you have a NASA collaborator who's at a NASA center, who's a NASA civil servant, they can't be funded through the project, but certainly they can be a collaborator and contribute. You just want to articulate that in the project, how they will, in the proposal, how they will be contributing. And you can see the other restrictions there. NASA funding history. If you've had previous or current NASA funded projects, particularly if you have had projects funded through Nevada Space Grant or Nevada NASA EPSCoR in the past, you'll want to give us a listing of that so we know that NASA funding history. There's no limit on the references and citations for the technical document. It does not need to be included. References and citations do not need to be included in your 5-page technical document. A CV limited to 2 pages for the PI and any co-PIs that are involved in the project. And then again, letter of collaboration. We strongly encourage this. So reach out to contacts at NASA if you can. Reach out to me if you don't know how to find a NASA contact. It really does help your proposal if you can find somebody at a NASA center who can speak to the value of your project. and is interested in being a collaborator and helping you advance your research goals. Submission guidelines. I pointed out on the website the link where you'll submit. That link should point to the same place as the link here. You will submit your proposal as a single PDF file. Again, use the cover sheet that's included in the attachments to fill out that cover page and attach that to the front of your PDF document. We actually have a naming convention for your PDF document. So after you've assembled everything in one PDF document, please rename the PDF document according to the naming convention here, and then you will upload it on the submission site. Evaluation criteria are described here. As I noted, I will be convening a panel. They're usually drawn from your colleagues at the research institutions for these proposals. They'll be asked to evaluate your proposal in terms of how well it articulated research goals and objectives, how well it articulated the importance, how well it described the outcomes of the project, were the methods clearly defined, and were those methods adequate to achieve the goals of the project, the demonstrated ability of the PI to do the work that was anticipated, were the outcomes described, and do they seem appropriate, and was the proposal written in such a manner that individuals from any STEM background can understand the importance and the technical aspects of the project. Describe in detail your alignment with NASA Mission Directorate or NASA mission goals. The reviewers will be asked to comment on that. The relevance to Nevada's goals, reviewers will be asked to comment on that. The budget, is the budget appropriate to the scope of the work and the scale of the program? And is there a collaboration articulated with NASA, and is there a letter of support there? Those are the review criteria. Questions may be directed to us. Contact information is here, with the exception that Carol Luna has very recently left our program, so Marcy is filling in that role. But do feel free to reach out to me with questions, or Darlene with questions, and if we can't answer them, we will we'll follow up with Marcy, and somehow we'll find an answer to your question. And Marcy's putting her contact information in the chat there. Thank you, Marcy. Let me quickly flip over to the research infrastructure, the space grant research infrastructure solicitation. And all I will do here is just highlight the differences, because much of this is similar. Has the same attachments here, although the cover page and the budget template might be slightly different. Let me close that. Same deadline for these proposals. The period of performance is different. So the reason for this is that the money that pays for these projects comes from our space grant funding, which is separate from our NASA EPSCoR funding. So it's a separate pot of money, a separate program. It's a separate project that I'm leading. And in fact, for a space grant, our funding cycle ends on April 9 of 2026 for our current cycle, 5-year cycle of funding. And we already have funding lined up for the next cycle, which will be the next 5 years. But these projects will be funded out of the final year funds from our current funding cycle. And so the period of performance, we are going to, we've moved up our deadlines by a few weeks for this program compared to what they were in previous years. And we've moved up the beginning of the period of performance in order to try to accelerate the rate at which these space grant projects spend out our space grant money. We're under increasing pressure from NASA to spend our space grant money sooner in the year. So the period of performance will be June 1 to April 9. There is a possibility that we will get a no-cost extension to our space grant funds into the summer of 2026, but not beyond that. So there's a possibility that we might be able to extend these funds, but we can't promise that at this stage because right now our federal funds expire on April 9. All of this is the same, the funding information. So the funding amounts are different. Again, Space Grant is a separate pot of money. It is a separate program. And so the dollar amounts are a little bit different. So these are $25,000 federal funds. And then we are anticipating now that we can provide an additional $25,000 in funds from the state special project match account for these projects. So a total of $50,000. So the funding amounts are a little bit larger in this Space Grant Research Infrastructure Program than they are in the NASA EPSCoR Research Infrastructure Sea Grant Program. Let's see, there is just trying to see where it talks about the goals of the program, because that's the other thing I wanted to highlight, and I guess it's up at the top. So let me go back. Sorry to be scrolling back and forth, but under the introduction here, remember when I spoke about the NASA EPSCoR Research Infrastructure Sea grants, the goal was to build research capacity in the state to improve your ability to be more competitive on the open market. The emphasis for Space Grant is a little bit different. The Nevada Space Grant Program seeks to develop a diverse and capable Nevada STEM workforce by providing NASA funds to NASA-related faculty research and/or workforce development projects. So the goal here is to advance the infrastructure for doing research in topic areas of importance to NASA, but in doing so, we aim to advance STEM education and workforce development goals of the Space Grant Program. And so that means there is more emphasis on student involvement in the Space Grant project. So I think it talks about, sorry about that, selected faculty project will enhance Nevada's research infrastructure and/or provide STEM workforce development opportunities for students in NASA Mission Directorate research topic areas. When I get the EPSCoR grants reviewed, student participation is not an element of the review criteria. So when we looked at the previous solicitation and I went through the review criteria, student engagement was not one of the review criteria. For the Space Grant Research Infrastructure, that is one of the review criteria. So a project that includes a plan to engage students in the research activity and describes how students will be engaged and how a diverse group of students will be recruited to participate in the project, those projects will likely be ranked higher or should expect should expect to be reviewed better because that is one of the review criteria for the Space Grant Research Infrastructure project. So that's an important distinction. There's more money in the Space Grant Research Infrastructure Program, but also there is this emphasis on student engagement. And the other thing I wanted to emphasize related to that is while faculty, so this is under the eligibility here, faculty receiving the direct funding do not need to be US citizens. Any students that are directly funded as participants in this research activity do have to be US citizens. And that is an obligation on these funds that imposed by NASA that they are now scrutinizing. So we will have to ask that if you are proposing to this program and you're proposing to engage a group of students, note that if the students are being funded by the project to participate in the activity, they need to be US citizens. And I think that's the main thing. You'll notice under the project description, item F here, a plan for student involvement, including recruiting of students from underrepresented and or underserved and or underrepresented groups. That is an element here that you will want to include in your project description. And I think the rest of this should be similar to what we talked about before. Any other distinctions, Darlene?
I'm sorry, Marcy.
Go ahead.
Okay. The question that I have is, you said that on one of these that the requirement of students is not necessary. So is that for both of these, or is it just for the RID?
It's just for the NASA EPSCoR RID Seed program. Student involvement is not an obligation. For the Space Grant Research Infrastructure Program, student involvement is highly encouraged.
Yeah.
And Eric, the restriction on student citizenship is graduate students must be citizens. It was supposed the requirement from NASA Space Grant is directly related to graduates, fellowships, and trainings.
Okay. Does that mean that if a project includes a undergraduate hourly students that are paid, would those students have to be citizens as well? Do you know the answer to that?
Our understanding is it only applies to graduate students.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification then. I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to open it up to any other questions from folks. Are there any questions?
Hi, Dr. Wilcox. I've got a couple of questions.
Yeah, go ahead, Ian.
Actually, this one-on-one match that I found in the not in the seed grant, but in the space grant, I also found very similar aspects with the travel support award as well. So I just wanted to know, like, how this split is actually working. So is it like that the match needs to come from UNLV, or the match needs to come from the state's budget, or how does it work?
For the Space Grant Research Infrastructure, which has the $25,000 one-to-one match, it will come from the state project match fund, which is a fund that Marcy's office manages. And that's money that comes from the state legislature as an incentive for these kinds of research activities. That's why we're able to offer those funds. So it does not need to come from UNLV. It will come from the state project match. Marcy, do you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, so on our budget form, it does show, it has separate columns for federal, state program match, and any institutional match. So you go ahead and put in what you want on the state match. It will come to you as hard dollars. If you are awarded, you'll receive 2 sub-awards from us. One will be the federal funding, and one will be the state program match funding. And together, they will make your project.
Okay, so it might be safe to say that the total cost for the, like, when I'm budgeting for that, the total cost that I'm looking at, the direct and indirect can add up to $50,000.
You have 25,000 total on your federal, and that includes your F&A on the federal. State program match funds do not have F&A applied against them. So your state would be all 25,000 in direct costs.
Okay. Understood. Thank you for the clarification. Is this the same for the, I think I mentioned to Dr. Wilcox, I was going to ask about the travel award as well. does that also is a one-on-one match? I was wondering if it is the same way. Unfortunately, it's not, probably a little bit outside of the scope of the meeting, but if you could answer that, that would be great.
Yes, we haven't written into the solicitation that way. We do sometimes do it all in state program match, sometimes all in federal, depending on where we're at with our budget for the year at the time. But yes, so we're not asking for a match from your institution for those travel dollars.
Okay, so so that solicitation is also pretty much similar to the space grant as well.
For the research infrastructure, yes. We have a couple of other solicitations that are out for higher education and what's PC? I just lost it. Pre-college.
Pre-college.
But those do not have the state program match from our office applied to them. Those do require institutional match just because of the way those are set up.
Yeah, but I think for the travel dollars, you just give us a budget for what you need for the travel, and we will fulfill that if it qualifies with either the federal dollars or the project match dollars, depending on which pot of money we have available.
It's more at your discretion, I can understand.
Yeah.
So it's like, so I think the travel solicitation was something like $5,000. We let you know what we have, and then like you can also determine as to like how to split it. Thank you very much for all the information.
Sure.
We do
And-
have a question in the chat for the RID Seed grant. Is the total budget the 31,000, and does the state not provide matched funding? And then Marcy just answered there is no match on the RID Seed grant. The total budget is 31,000 of the federal funds.
Yes, they recently changed the way that funding was being handled and the amount of match that was required. So we stopped doing the split on the research infrastructure development seed grants. We just do it with federal dollars.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Doesn't sound like it. Okay. Well, with that then, we'll go ahead and stop the recording, I guess, and we will yield back the rest of your hour to you.